everybody, welcome to my very first post, the video. I know I put a Facebook post out there just saying like if anybody's interested in learning about gardening, I was going to start a blog. What I say in this video today will also be written on the blog, and I thought some of you some of you had suggested doing a video blog as well, so I'll do a video as well. Now, the sound isn't perfect. If I can find some funds, I'll definitely look into getting some better equipment for sound. And I want to thank my brother Vern for giving Rex that long flashlight, because that's what's lighting this up now so that the lighting isn't too bad. So in light of, why am I doing this? In light of the coronavirus, we are all kind of hunkered down and people are a little bit worried about food. And also people just want to find something else to do to keep their time occupied, keep their kids occupied. This is a great activity to do with kids. And it's also like a nutrition. Good food comes from a variety of sources. However, if you can grow it yourself in a good way, then you know where your food's coming from and what's in your food. In addition to that, it's much more environmental. I am an environmentalist. I'm a musician. I'm an environmentalist. I'm a mother. I'm an educator. We're off work right now due to the coronavirus, so I need to do something to occupy my time. We have been growing our own food now for 4 years straight through harvesting and storing in a variety of different ways and preserving in a variety of different ways. My friend Harriet, who's also my neighbor, when she gets back anyway, she said that she'll join me on this little blog and video. I've learned most of what I know from her. She is an avid gardener has been for probably like more than 5 decades for sure. So she has a wealth of knowledge, and I will be teaming up with other people that have knowledge as well to continue on with this. So getting started, don't panic. I know most of you are like, whoa, your plants are already quite big. I start in January. Doesn't mean you have to start in January. But I'm going to give a quick rundown here of what things can be started. And I've actually started in 3 different ways here, just to try it out this year. So I'll show you the 3 different ways and I'll tell you which ones I like and why. So in January, and this will all be on the blog too, in January I like to start all of my herbs, and I do like to start all of my peppers. Peppers do take a long time to grow, and let's see if I can find some peppers here. Here's some. They take a long time to grow, and they take a long time for the fruit to actually get to harvesting. So unless you want to be covering your peppers all fall, I would suggest planting them as early as possible. You may get some peppers if you start them now, but you should have started them a little bit earlier. Doesn't mean you can't, and especially if you live in a colder climate, you might be able to do it. This is done. These were in January, it is now March. So these are almost 3 months old now. So January, you want to start your herbs and you want to start your peppers. In February, I like to start my tomatoes, and I'll tell you why. You can start your tomatoes in March or April. That's fine. But I prefer to start my tomatoes early so that I can have tomatoes in sometimes as early as late June, but quite often in July I'll have tomatoes. Whereas if you start them now or start them in last month or in April, you will be covering them in the fall. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I do live in Northern Ontario, so we usually get frost in September. So my choices in September are to cover everything every night in case of frost. The other thing we battle in the fall is slugs, and they will annihilate your tomatoes once they've learned where they are. So if you start them early, that means they're finishing up a little bit early. You're eating them right off the vine instead of in a bunch of boxes underneath your bed, because you have to pick them green to save them and then slowly ripen them in your house if you live up north anyway. So starting them as early as possible. They will get quite big. They do tend to get a little bit long right now and stringy. However, as soon as I bring them to the greenhouse and bump them up and get them into the garden, they will spread out and they'll be just fine. Plants are very resilient. In March, oh yes, in February you also want to do your celery and celeriac. So here is my celery. They're ready to get bumped up, so I'll be taking them to the greenhouse soon. You can see that their roots are starting to come through the bottom, that's an indication that they're ready to move up. This is not a celery, this is just a yellow pepper that I planted about 3 weeks ago. So as you can see, they do grow slow. So celery, celeriac, and tomatoes are what you want to start in February. In March, if you happen to really like your broccoli and your kales and your cabbages, March is the time to do that. So as you can see here, here's a curly cabbage that I've started. They are ready to bump up as well. I'll be bringing them to the greenhouse probably after the new moon this week actually, so later this week, and I'll be posting a video about that as well. So here's my curly cabbage, and then you can, when you bump them up, which you'll know later too, you can bury the stem. So your kale, your broccoli, I also have kohlrabi growing here. I started my basil. I should point out that when you're doing your herbs, don't start your basil too soon. Basil does get really stringy. Hey Rex, how's it going? So here's, I start my basil now because they grow pretty fast. So what else? Did I miss anything? Oh yes, Swiss chard. Swiss chard is a good one to start up this month. So the Swiss chard, I don't know if you know what Swiss chard is. Most people do, but just in case you don't. These grow into great big leafy plants. You can eat them like lettuce, you can boil them up and eat them, use them in salads, use them in soups. Swiss chard is very versatile and highly nutritious. Am I missing anything? Kale, broccoli, cabbage, kohlrabi, Swiss chard, and basil. So April is coming up. I didn't mention this yet, but I do plant by the moon. So what I do is I look to see when the full moon is, and I start my seeds 5 days before the full moon. I learned that from Harriet. There's something about the full moon, the gravitational pull, that actually really helps the roots when they germinate to grow deeper, stronger, and thicker. So you'll have a much healthier plant when you grow by the moon. So 5 days before the full moon in April is when you're going to want to start your gourds. Obviously it's not April, so I haven't started any gourds. So types of plants that you are going to want to plant, if you're thinking of these ones, are, just to make sure I don't miss any types of squashes or pumpkins, cucumbers, zucchini, watermelons, cantaloupes. Oh yes, and marigolds. You want to plant your marigolds as well right now so that they're actually flowering when you get them into the garden, so that you have that pest control with the slugs. It won't get rid of all your slugs, but a lot of pests don't like marigolds, so at least keep them at bay until there's just so many that you can't keep them at bay any longer. Squashes, we like to grow butternut squash, red October squash, spaghetti squash, and obviously pumpkins. You can get a variety of watermelon and honeydews and cantaloupes that will grow in the north. However, in another video way down in the middle of summer, you'll see we do build little fences around them with black, anything that's dark, and keep them sheltered to build a mini climate around them so that they will flourish. If you are going to grow squash, if you're starting squash seeds like butternut or spaghetti or the red Octobers, please be aware that they do take a lot of space. So make sure you have ample space and things for them to crawl up, fences, whatever, because especially the big red Octobers, they will overtake large parts of your garden. So that's April. All of your gourds basically. Oh, and Brussels sprouts. I like to grow Brussels sprouts. I know that's in the broccoli family. However, because it's a later vegetable that you can harvest in the fall, planting them now will keep the Brussels in really good condition until fall, then you can harvest in the fall. But you can plant them in March too if you want, but I prefer to do that this month. Late May, no, May, regular May, indoors or in the greenhouse. You're going to want corn to pre-start your corn if you're growing corn. Any pole beans, green and yellow. Anything else? Some lettuces if you like. Late May, right out in the garden, you can start your spinach, radishes, and some lettuces. It'll take a long time for them to get going. So if you want those, that's a late May in the ground. And in June, what you plant directly in the ground are potatoes, turnips, beets, carrots, onions, peas, all of that. So none of that gets started. This is how I start. I have over 150 plants right here. As you can see, it's not taking up very much space. So you can do this if you have like a good light. Right now it's in the morning, so we're not getting a whole lot of sunlight, but in a couple hours from now, we're gonna be loaded with sunlight, and it's enough sunlight for these guys to grow. And like I said, small space, a little ironing board, 100 and some plants right here. Getting back to very quickly, there's 3 different ways I tried planting this year, and I'll tell you what I like and what I don't. I'll show you the celery again, or maybe these peppers here. I planted these guys in these little 6-pack Tetra Packs, or it's not Tetra Pack, these little 6-packs. They're just ones that I got last year. Some of them are broken, whatever. I just save them and reuse them from year to year, give them a good cleaning and reuse them. This is my favorite way, because then I just plant them and they're done. I did try this year with these with the little Jiffy pot, with the little pod seeds. You put water and then you put your seeds in, it's ready to go. It was convenient for time. However, I find that the seeds didn't really grab the way they did here. The other way that you can try is plot seeding. So as you can see, I just threw a bunch of broccoli in here just to see how it does. Types of plants like broccoli, you can do that because they'll separate okay. Anything in the gourd family, you do not want to start like this because damage to the roots will bother them immensely. And then they'll most likely die, and then you spent all that time for nothing. So don't do plot gardening or like pre-seeding with any of the gourd family. So I do prefer this because it doesn't take up that much space and the seeds just tend to do a lot better. What else? Soil. If you are starting like this, make sure you're getting a seed soil for starting seeds. Don't just pick up any bag of soil because it's cheap. You're going to get what you pay for. Get something that's good for germinating seeds, and when you bump them up, which will be in another video later on, you'll see how you can bump them up and how Harriet and I make our soil so that your plants are now getting the nutrition that they need. If you give them that soil right now, it's too hot for them and they end up just burning, and then they won't grow and they won't germinate. Anyway, that's my video for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something.